Okay, guys, today we're going to be on Jace's team in the draft analysis series. Now, Jace's team, I believe, beat Hassan's team by 1 score in terms of the total score. So this would be the highest I think I've ever rated a team. I could be wrong. I think Laurel's got some teams that I've rated really high in the 44s to 45 areas. I can't quite remember, but I know she's had at least 144. But yeah, this is definitely one of the highest teams that I've rated, if not the highest. Now, Jace made me eat my words a little bit. I said a lot during the beginning that Rain doesn't generally perform very well, at least in the drafts that I've played with and the drafts that I've watched. But Jace got everything that I think he wanted, and then he got some, interesting picks that he might have wanted to try out. The most notable thing that I think that he got was Zapdos, Swampert, Pelipper, and then maybe Kartana. Having Clefable there I think was a great add as well. But Zapdos able to deal with those grass type attacks for Swampert and Pelipper. And then Kartana having the rain up. I think he still gets KO'd in a lot of cases by fire type attacks because his SPDF is so low, but it does help to some extent. And then he's got just a really nice blanket check for his rain team in Dusclops, either in physically or specially defensive. If something's there that's just a problem, like for example, in his last match, I don't know I can't remember if he brought Dusclops. I don't think he did. But Dusclops would have been a really good bring to deal with the freeze dry, which I think is going to be a problem for him coming into playoffs. If a team does have it, not a lot of people picked up on that weakness for his team, but Dusclops would have been a really nice blanket check to deal with that, considering he's got 4 mons that'll be weak to freeze dry. Just in my opinion, because it's such a busted move, being able to hit both is just ridiculous. But yeah, we're gonna start on his offense here. This team is just all around the board. It's really hard to prep for. Like, in a sense, it's easier to prep for because you know that there's a general strategy to the team. It's not just like wild like Blade's team. Blade's team's just wild. It could be anything. You have no idea what it's going to bring. You have no idea what he's going to do. Now, not to say Jace hasn't mixed it up or doesn't have versatility or variety in his team, but there's a general idea behind his team. You know that Pelipper's wanting to come, and you know that Mega Swampert's wanting to come. You know that Mega Swampert's wanting to be a cleaner in either physical or special attack. It helps you kind of start out with a base on how to team build, right? But starting out in the offense here, I scored a 9. Now, for his offensive Pokemon, I mean, he's got a lot of offensive capabilities here. He's got Zapdos, he's got Swampert, he's got Clefable, Kartana, Goodra, Hitmontop, Dusclops to an extent. We in the other draft that I'm in, we did talk about offensive Dusclops could potentially be a problem for some teams. You have Ambipom, Magmar, and Toxicroak, and of course Toxicroak being helped by that dry skin with the Rain Dance up will give him a free leftovers, which is really nice, so he can run Life Orb freely and not have to worry about the chip damage from it. But yeah, so starting off with Zapdos here, Zapdos really nice in the rain, getting 100% Hurricanes, 100% Thunders. It makes Zapdos a lot more threatening than he already is. I mean, it has base 125 special attack, which is not low. And base 100 speed, which is that 328 speed, which is a average, which is good. You want that. In this case, when I'm saying average, it's you want to hit that base 100 speed here, especially in draft. You want to have at least a couple Pokemon that are hitting that speed tier. So to have this in a defensive Pokemon that can have over base 100 attack moves, it makes it really hard to deal with because it's going to be able to switch into your offensive Pokemon and then fire back with a lot of firepower in Hurricane and Thunder. Now he does have Heat Wave for the Steel types, but like it's going to be weakened by the Rain Dance, which kind of sucks. So generally you're going to see the Thunder, the Hurricane, Volt Switch, or U-Turn depending on the team that he's versing, and then maybe Defog if he's not running it on Pelipper. So or even Weather Ball. Weather Ball is an interesting option that I didn't know I got, but would allow him to fire off a Weather Ball in the rain on those ground types that are going to want to switch into Zapdos. So I'm not sure if he's saving that or if he's used it already. I'm pretty sure he hasn't. Maybe he has. Maybe he has once. I kind of feel like he has once. Yeah, that would be pretty. I mean, with having Pelipper, it allows Zapdos to be an offensive option for his team, which is really crazy, because it's a good offensive option. He has 2 stab moves that are above 100 in Thunder and Hurricane. If you didn't hear me before, Thunder and Hurricane. But then he has Weather Ball as well, which is going to be over 100 base power and then be boosted from the rain. I mean, it gives Zapdos perfect coverage, right? Zapdos also having access to defog and stuff like that. It does have Toxic, it does have T-Wave. Those might be useful to him, but I think in the way that I mentioned it, since Pelipper is going to be able to have defog, it makes Zapdos really threatening to have those 3 attacks in terms of coverage. It's going to work really well, for those mons that are going to want to switch into those, those Volt switches or those Thunders, things like that, right? So. And of course, in this draft, we have Hidden Power available, which makes Zapdos even more threatening, since he can, he can cater it to whatever he needs to. So, after mentioning Zapdos there being so strong for his team, we're gonna have another option that's just super strong for his team. And then Jace has also introduced a new way to use Swampert as well. At least for me, since I haven't seen Swampert too much in drafts, the times that I have seen him, it's just been, physical cleaner. But Jace has ran a specially offensive Swampert, which has worked really well for him in a lot of cases. So Swampert having good coverage, the exact coverage in both physical and special. So the physical side, you're obviously going to see, the flip turn, which has made Swampert so much, even better than he already was. But yeah, it's the liquidation. I believe it's liquidation. Yeah, liquidation, earthquake, and then the coverage, either ice punch, superpower, whatever the case might be. But then in the special side, it's surf, earth power, ice beam, which is really nice coverage as well. He does have darkest lariat, and he did get access to, like I mentioned, flip turn this season around. But he does also have bulk up, which is kind of neat. Power up punch is an option that I have seen in other drafts that I've performed in. And then of course he has Stealth Rocks. I didn't realize he has Sludge Wave, which is really crazy. That would be really nuts to see that. I didn't realize he had Sludge Wave. That's kind of cool. Does also have Focus Block. So yeah, Mega Swampert being able to come in and clean up in either the special attacking side or the physical side is really nice for Jace, because if a team is really heavily physically defensive, for example, Phil's Buzzwole, I mean, he really doesn't want to bring a physically offensive Mega Swampert to that. He could just bring a especially offensive Mega Swampert and run Hidden Power Flying, and then he would probably be able to KO the Buzzwole. And just not have to worry about getting hit by the Rocky Helm. He could still deal, reliable damage, chip damage on some of those other defensive options he hasn't dealt with time. But yeah, Swampert just hitting, I think it's 560 is what he hits after his double speed in the rain. It's a crazy sweeper, and it's always going to be high on the kill boards. I want to say top 10 on the kill boards right now. Maybe not. Jace has been really good about utilizing all his mons, but let's see. Kill leaderboard. Yep, number 3. Number 3, Mega Swampert with 11 kills, 0 deaths. Mega Swampert is the only Pokemon on the leaderboard that has not been KO'd yet, on the top 10 KO leaderboard. So just a phenomenal feat. Yeah, just crazy. I believe it will have one death on its record this week, because I think Jace did go down this week. So, but yeah, Mega Swampert, just a phenomenal Pokemon. Jace has been able to make this rain team so good around his Mega Swampert. But anyways, we're gonna go on to. I'm gonna quickly mention Pelipper as an offensive option here. I think it's actually a really annoying offensive option. You run Specs, Weather Ball. It's just, Specs, Weather Ball, or Specs Hurricane. Just super obnoxious to deal with. Yeah, I've used it a couple times. It's pretty annoying when the opponent thinks that they can come in on something and then it blasts them. It either one hit KOs them or it it puts them in 2-hit KO range. Something that we might see in playoffs. But moving to the Clefable here. The Clefable, you guys know its offensive capabilities. Having Magic Guard allows it to run Life Orb and not take the chip damage from Life Orb. But also having Calm Mind and Cosmic Power, Stored Power. Does have Belly Drum as well. Belly Drum. Rain Punch. I need to see that from somebody, please. Especially on this type of Pokemon, you could totally pull that off. But yes, having the Calm Mind, Cosmic Power, Calm Mind Draining Kiss is also the option that might be good on it. Considering you can't Toxic it, would be really, really crazy. Calm Mind Draining Kiss would be really interesting to see. Because you can run Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, Cosmic Power, Soft Boil. That way you can boost all your defenses. And then have reliable recovery on that as well. But yeah, its coverage is really good. Has Fire Punch, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, Drain Punch like I mentioned, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Knockoff. Shadow Ball, Psychic, Psyshock. It has phenomenal coverage. So bringing it as just an offensive wall breaker with Life Orb is also a good option for his team as well. But generally looking at this team, it might be coming in terms of rocks, since he doesn't want to be putting Swampert in the position to always run rocks. And rocks might allow the Swampert to make sure that it gets those one KOs. So we're going to see Clefable a lot on the supportive side, I think, of this team. But that's not to say it can't be a really, really good offensive threat, considering it can learn Thunder, which you could utilize in the rain as well. So next up we have Kartana, which has been, in my opinion, from my eyes, one of Jace's favorite mons to just like slap on the team, throw out first, try and get a sweep. Doesn't work. We're gonna go back to the rinse and repeat rain strategy, right? And don't take that as a knock. That's not what I was meaning when I was saying that. I think it's been interesting when you send out Kartana first and Supersonic Sky Strike right away. But Kartana being a really, really a very scary Pokemon to work around. Having 460 attack, I believe it is. Yeah, 461 in Jolly. So that's, if you go in Adamant, that's 507. And Adamant isn't too bad because you choice Scarf it. You have it in Adamant. It's still base 317 speed in Adamant nature. But yeah, Kartana, just a really scary Pokemon to deal with, especially as a Zmon. One Beast Boost, and this thing can easily spiral out of control for you. Considering, like I just said, it's either 460 in Jolly or 507 in Adamant. Also has good coverage in Leaf Blade, Knockoff, Sacred Sword, Smart Strike. And as we've seen, Jace use the Supersonic Sky Strike, which would be Aerial Ace for the Z move. Does have Night Slash, does have Psycho Cut if needed. Also has Swords Dance, which is a very scary set. You send that out first, and the opponent's got to switch, and you set up Swords Dance. I mean, Knockoff will probably kill anything unless it's like a very, very bulky Pokemon. Wow. An interesting thing that I didn't realize is Kartana gets a Defog. I wonder if Jace has thought about utilizing that a couple times. But, I mean, he's got two really great defoggers. I wouldn't expect that. I'm just looking at some interesting things that you might be able to run with Kartana here. I really like the idea that Kartana's defense is so high, you could potentially run like a rest set, rely on Clefable to, run Aromatherapy, keep Kartana healthy. I mean, you could just run Wish Teleport at the same time as well. So, I mean, Kartana, just a really, really extreme wall breaker for this team. It's going to allow Swampert to clean up really, really easily. And that's why we're seeing Kartana sent out first. or sent out early a lot, or supersonic sky striking a lot, is because Jace is looking to set up either the win, of course off the beast boost, but he's wall breaking. He wants to break holes into these teams so that Swampert can come out into the mid or late game whenever his reign comes up and either revenge kill or outright clean the team. That's what's important about this Kartana here. So a very, very important piece to this team. And then we have Gudra here, which is, like I said at the beginning of this, he got like, I almost want to say like, I don't know if he had like a written out plan of what he wanted, but like he got everything I feel like he needed for his team and a little more. The Gudra, why the Gudra is something that I'm, hyping up here is because it's got Sap Sipper. It's going to allow him to absorb those attacks from Swampert, or at least threaten it. And that's what's really important. Just threatening it is something that's scary. Not to mention, it gets hydration as well, guys. And if you don't know what hydration does, its status gets cured at the end of each turn. So it can run, rest, and have Rain Dance up. It would be a full cure. It would be a full, full restore? I think in the game. It cures your status and it heals you full HP. And with the rain up, you wouldn't be sleeping because it would cure your sleeping. So a very, very interesting Pokemon to add to the rain team. Jace definitely knew what he was doing when he was building this rain team. So Gudra just having phenomenal stats across the board. Being one of the only dragons that is just dragon type is kind of nice. Not a time score weak ice weak dragon is kind of nice. Having base 90 HP, 100 attack, 110 special attack, 150 special defense, and 80 speed is just, it's good all along the board. It's got phenomenal coverage in both physical and special attack. So in the physical side, we have Aqua Tail, we have Body Press. As we've seen, Jace use Breaking Swipe. You have Counter as well, just in case, since its defense is a little bit low. You have Draco Meteor, you have Dragon Tail, Earthquake, Fire Blast, Fire Punch, Focus Blast, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Iron Tail. What else do we got here? Stomping Tantrum. And why I'm going to mention Stomping Tantrum is because something that I just learned recently is when Grassy Terrain is up, it only affects Earthquake. It doesn't affect all ground moves. So you could run Stomping Tantrum and it wouldn't be affected by the Grassy Terrain. Fun fact there. Also runs Thunderbolt, Thunder Punch, and then Weather Ball as well. So I think I missed Sludge Bomb and Sludge Wave. Just phenomenal coverage. Perfect coverage that Gudra can use. He can build it to anything that he needs in the match. It has more than enough bulk to go in and absorb attacks for his team and fire off really strong coverage moves. So either in the Hydration or the Sap Sipper, this is a really, really great Pokemon to have in the team. And it's just another piece to this team that doesn't have any clunkiness to it. It has its spot. It works in this team. So yeah, I'm just when I've went over this team not on recording, just it's there's a lot of things that are just going right for this team, and it's really hard to find holes in it. So I'm just very impressed with it. But then we have Hitmontop here. Now Hitmontop is a mon that I went crazy about in my analysis for the NCPL. And why that I go crazy about it is because, yes, it's got Intimidate, yes, it's got a Technician, it's got good defenses, and good attack. But what makes this Pokemon important is that it has, I think it's 4 forms of priority, okay? And what makes this point important is having a defensive Pokemon that can come in and clean up gives you a lot more freedom with what you're going to do in your next few turns. Because a lot of the times when you revenge kill, what happens is the opponent can come in and either attempt to revenge kill you or put you in a position where you're going to take chip damage. Now, if you have a defensive Pokemon that comes in and does the cleanup for you, you have a lot more options. You can stay in and deal some damage, or you can switch out to something that's going to be able to deal with it better. It puts your opponent into a position where they got to think about what they're going to do, rather than putting you into the position of what you think you're going to need to do. Now, that sounds a little confusing, but like, you know, let's say you send out Hitmontop. It revenge kills the Charizard, okay? You put out the Obstagoon. Hitmontop comes out, it revenge kills with Mach Punch, okay? Now the opponent is in a position where it's like, okay, well, this is a bulky Pokemon. I can't KO it with, I don't know. I can't KO it with Magmortar. Can't KO it with, Basculin. And it's going to be able to deal a ton of damage to me, maybe even KO me, depending what's invested into it. Don't know what I'm going to do. Might have to waste a Pokemon here. Instead of the other way around, where your opponent brings out Obstagoon, you bring in Mineshaw. Great Pokemon, but very, very weak defenses. You close combat the Obstagoon. You have to switch now. In most cases, you will have to switch, because the opponent can just come in with, I don't know, Skarmory, Corviknight, or those are defensive options, of course. I named defensive options. Comes in with Lele, okay? Comes in with Lele, you're like, holy shit. Something's going to take a lot of damage from either Psychic, Moonblast, or whatever coverage move he's got. So what I'm getting at is, instead of putting yourself in that position, when you send out Hitmontop, I mean, obviously Hitmontop's in the same position. Of course, I'm using Lele. Jesus Christ. Anyways, having a defensive Pokemon with priority options is really great, because it allows you to revenge kill with those defensive options and give you a little bit more freedom in what you're going to do with your team, and not just take Chip for no reason. So, but let's get into its coverage moves, okay? We have Aerial Ace. We have Bullet Punch being one of the priority moves I was talking about. Does get access to Bulk Up, Close Combat, Earthquake, Fake Out, the other option that I was referring to. You could mention Quick Attack. That's not one of the ones I was talking about. Does have Rapid Spin, which is really great for this team. Can free up slots for Pelipper and Zapdos, which is also very, very important. It bringing up slots for those Pokemon. It allows Pelipper to maybe run U-Turn and Knockoff and Weather Ball, and Roost. 3 attacks and Roost. It would allow Zapdos to run 3 attacks and Roost, or Zapdos to be a Scarf, or Zapdos to be a Specs Pokemon. That's what's important about having all these options to get rid of hazards is really, really good for a team. It makes the team so much better. And then the other option for priority we have here is Sucker Punch, okay? And then we have Triple Axle. We have... I missed the Stone Edge and the Rock Slide as well. So just really, really good coverage from Hitmontop, and having those 3 priority moves, namely the Mach Punch and Bullet Punch being really, really useful for it, and Sucker Punch for, the Ghost types that nobody drafted. There's a couple teams that drafted Ghost types, but yeah, it could come in and deal with those Ghost types, Lurk or something like that. Something that's not just like a defensive one that would want to Wisp you, right? So Hitmontop, another good, kind of blanket check for the team. And like we seen Jace talk about, it was a really good check for these Icemons that are going to want to freeze dry his team. A vested Hitmontop might be really, really useful against those types of Pokemon. So, but then we have Ambipom. So Ambipom, kind of a funny Pokemon for me. Every time I play in a draft, I always feel like I want to draft this Pokemon. The one time I did draft it, I felt like I was suffocated. I just couldn't use it. It was so weak. I had to lead it. I had a hard time playing around with it. Not to say that it's a bad Pokemon. It's just so frail. But it does have Technician, Fake Out, Stab, which is crazy. It does a lot of damage at base 100 attack, base 115 speed, which is phenomenal. That's another thing interesting to note about this team. Even though it's a rain team, he still has good speed tiers in Ambipom. He still has Kartana. He has 3 priorities out of Hitmontop, base 80 out of Gudra, base 100 out of Zapdos, 93 in Magmar, and I think 89 on Toxicroak. Still really good speeds, and then of course you have Pranksters from Murkrow, right? But yeah, generally what you're going to see from the Ambipom here is Fake Out, Return, Low Kick, eventually Pursuit, U-Turn, Knockoff. Those are the kind of things that you're going to see. Maybe Ice Punch, depending on the matchup, if there's a ×4 weak to it. That's really what you're going to see. We did see Jace use Taunt once, I believe, which was really useful in stopping the Jirachi, which just wanted to set up in his face. Some options that I have used myself is Switcheroo. Catch those defensive Pokemon that are going to want to switch into Ambipom, right? Ambipom, just basically a fake out abuser or a cleaner lead. It's, you know, that's its role in most of the teams that it drafts. It doesn't really do anything too much different than that. I'd be surprised if somebody pulled out something, you know, drastically different. You know, maybe a Focus Sash counter or something like that. But you take away its utility, in my opinion, if you do something like that. But then we have Magmar here, which I think is a really overlooked Pokemon, maybe I'd say. So it's got base 57 defense, which is not the greatest, but base 85 SpDef, 93 speed, 100 special attack, and 95 attack. That's pretty good, and it gets access to Eviolite with Flame Body. Pretty good. Ooh. With Vital Spirit, can you rest? I never thought about that. I want to look that up really quick. Oh, rest will fail. Okay, that'd be pretty broken. But anyways, yeah, the Flame Body Eviolite will be really nice for him. It'll really deter those physical attackers from wanting to attack him. The base 57. So what is that? 150. That's pretty bad. 150 times 1.5. It puts it at 225. Not terrible. But yeah, what makes Magmar kind of interesting in terms of its you know, its cost, which was really low. It does have really good coverage. It gets access to Belly Drum. So its coverage being, you know, the Flamethrower, Scorching Sands, Thunderbolt, and then of course the Hidden Power. That's about all it's got. Lava Plume as well. So it does have physical options as well if it's a Belly Drum set and Flare Blitz. Yeah, I did get Mach Punch as well, which I was really surprised about. And then no Drain Punch, unfortunately. But the thing that's interesting about the Magmar is it does have Taunt, it does have Teleport. So, you know, it could be a decent defensive option for his team. The only thing that hurts this Magmar is that this is a rain team. So when the rain is up, Magmar is just extra weak to water. Like, he's not extra weak, I just mean that the rain will boost water attacks, so it makes it a lot harder for Magmar to deal with them. But a Will-O-Wisp, Teleport, set, you know, a defensive set, something like that with Flame Body, it might be pretty good actually. You know, Fire Spin, a trapping set, something like that. Does also have access to Clear Smoke to deal with those setup boosters. So like I was just mentioning, it could be a especially defensive option with Clear Smoke to make sure those setup mons don't get out of hand, and then teleport away into an offensive mon after you Clear Smoke or something like that, right? So I'll be surprised if we see him use it. If we do see him use it, it might be just something, you know, like a funny use. But I don't think we'll see him use it too much, considering he's got good enough coverage between the, you know, other mons that I've mentioned already. So last but not least, we have Toxicroak here. Now Toxicroak being able to be a physical or a special attacking Pokemon is really nice. Having Dry Skin is good in the rain, but Poison Touch is also very annoying to deal with. It gives a 30% chance of poisoning to any physically contacting move. So, you know, Knock Off, Drain Punch, things like that. It's going to give him extra ways to poison you, which is super annoying. So, but his physical coverage, Gunk Shot, Drain Punch, Knock Off, Earthquake. Also having access to Bullet Punch and Sucker Punch is really, really nice. Does have other things like Poison Jab and Throat Chop and stuff like that, but generally what I mentioned just there is what you're going to see. On the special side, you have Sludge Bomb or Sludge Wave. You have Vacuum Wave for your priority still. Shadow Ball. Ooh, it does have Nasty Plot. It has Nasty Plot and Sword Dance. That's really threatening. Not knowing what this Toxicroak is going to be in the physical or special side, pretty threatening to deal with. That might be something hard to prep for when we come in playoffs. Actually, come into game 2 or game 3, Toxicroak might come, and then you got to think about if it's a special or a physical set or a mix set even. But yeah, having Fake Out, having Dark Pulse, some other interesting things like that. But yeah, generally you're going to see Gunk Shot, you're going to see Drain Punch, Knockoff, Earthquake, maybe Sucker Punch or Bullet Punch depending. Probably not Bullet Punch because you're going to have Gunk Shot. I mean Bullet Punch maybe if you need to outspeed the Fairy type, but I think Gunk Shot will be fine. But yeah, so Toxicroak, another Mon that just like fits so well onto this Rain team. The only Mon that might be out of place here is Magmar, and I dare I say it, the Murkrow. You might be able to trade those two. I mean, not now because your roster's locked, but you might have been able to trade those two for something that could have been more useful to your team. But like then you run into the problem of you have so many useful Pokemon. You run into the problem of like, okay, what am I gonna put on my team here, right? So but we're gonna move on to defense. How long was that? Holy shit, I was on offense for 30 minutes there. Wow. So the defense here, we have Zapdos, we have Pelipper, Clefable, Murkrow, and Dusclops. So the other Mons that could be defensive are Suedo defensive Pokemon. But Zapdos, just being able to absorb the physical attacks and threaten with static is really nice for his team. Clefable being able to have Soft Boil or Wish support and Aromatherapy. Being immune to rocks and status as well is really nice for that Clefable. Clefable able to come in, maybe get Swampert in for free with a Teleport and a Wish. Heal up Pelipper, heal up Zapdos, maybe even heal up Goodra. That'd be pretty annoying since Goodra is pretty hard to take down as it is. Be able to do that for the team. That's what I think Clefable's role is going to be most of the time, is keeping these bulky Pokemon like Goodra and Zapdos more freely alive, and the Dusclops as well. So, but then we have Dusclops here. Actually, I'll start with Murkrow. So, Murkrow. I didn't go on a tangent or anything, but I was explaining how I think Murkrow is just a Pokemon that's it's so weak. Even though it has Eviolite, it's generally going to be 1 to 2 hit KO'd. Yes, it has Prankster, which is really nice for the team because you can Prankster T-Wave. I think it gets Perish Song is its thing. And it does have Prankster Haze, which is kind of nice actually. But all in all, I mean, I think it's 86, yeah, 91, 85. So it does, you could set up like Calm Mind or something like that. Calm Mind Roost. I mean, because it does get the, ooh, I didn't know it had Psycho Shift. Psycho Shift, is the move that Sigilyph usually uses with like Flame Orb or Toxic Orb, and then you Psycho Shift it onto the opponent. So then you could run Flame Orb on Murkrow and Psycho Shift it. That would be a really interesting set. There's a little bit more versatility in Murkrow than I expected, but I still think this is a Pokemon that will end up not sticking around in the match too long. It's basically going to do the job that it's intended for. Either Haze or the Perish Song mean look. Things like that. So it does have options in the T-Wave, Toxic, the Psycho Shift. Flame Orb is actually a really interesting, maybe good option for his team, I think. We could see that. So, but we're gonna move on to Dusclops here. Dusclops, like I said earlier, this is an awesome blanket check for his team. Anything that his team is having trouble with, Dusclops will be able to deal with. Namely, in my opinion, those freeze dries, those grass attacks, anything this team has problems with. Kartona has problems with fire, Dusclops. Goodra has problems with fairy type attacks, Dusclops. Swampert has problems with grass type attacks, Dusclops. He has one electric immunity in Swampert. You can use Dusclops for the electric type attacks. It has such high special defense. I mean, so it's base 130. So if you ran a fully SPDF set, that's 394 times 1.5. 591 special defense with 284 HP. This thing is an absolute beast. It can absorb basically any attacks. It doesn't even really care too much for knockoff. I'm sure it doesn't like it, but yeah, it's not to mention it has a phenomenal draft ability in Frisk. It's allowing him to see the opponent's items. It allows Jace to formulate a plan around those items that he sees, which is really good. Also got access to Poltergeist. Does have Shadow Sneak, Power Up Punch, Will-O-Wisp. Does have Haze, which is very underutilized or overlooked move, which I think is super useful in draft. You know, it allows Jace to not worry when he's going to go at teams like Jeremy's or Jared's, because he's got this blanket check that can come in and Haze and then maybe Will-O-Wisp or something like that. But it does have access to Disable, Hex, Toxic, Will-O-Wisp, so it could be really annoying in that Hex version. Just a Pokemon that's gonna. It does have Nightshade as well, which I think is a really good, reliable damage from it. But just a Pokemon that works so well for this team because it, like I said, a blanket check. And what I mean by blanket check, it's like throwing a blanket down. It can cover a wide variety of things for your team. You know, and that's what makes the Dusclops pick so good for this team. Is because there is some pretty inherent weakness, or there are some very apparent weaknesses for this team, namely that Freeze Dry and of course the Grass type for the Swampert, which Dusclops can easily deal with. Either Will-O-Wisp them away, Toxic them, Nightshade, whatever it needs to do, it can do. So a Pokemon that I might look to draft a little bit more, Dusclops. I like how it can be offensive and defensive at the same time. A little bit more threatening than I ever expected it. So, but that's about it for the defensive Pokemon. This defense is a 10. I didn't mention that at the beginning. I was so shocked that I was at 30 minutes already on the offense. But the defense is a 10. I mean, having Zapdos, having Pelipper, Clefable, Goodra, Hitmontop, and then Dusclops to cover anything that isn't covered is just is really hard to. Where do you find a hole in it? Because you don't know if he's going to bring Clefable or Dusclops or Hitmontop or Zapdos. I mean, generally, I think he's usually going to bring Zapdos, Swampert, Pelipper to almost all matches. But you get what I'm saying. The holes in this team are small, minimal. There really isn't any. Freeze Dry is like a completely busted move, and that's about the only thing that's going to be able to like really tear apart his team, in my opinion. So, there is a couple other ones that are there, but they're not that big. They're just I'd say unchecked. I'd say, but like we've talked about, Dusclops can blanket check these Pokemon and deal with them accordingly, either with Toxic, Will-O-Wisp, whatever it is, right? But we're going to move on to speed now, which is 8.5, the lowest score on his team. Despite having Rain and allowing Swampert to reach 568, which is phenomenal. As I said earlier, he does have decent speed tiers outside of that in, Ambipom, Zapdos, and Kartana. But Ambipom is the only one that goes above that 350. Which I said before, you should look to draft maybe two Pokemon above that 350 range. I think would be important, especially considering Ambipom is so frail. It's really only going to be able to fire off one attack before it gets KO'd back, if it's not OHKOing you or doing cleanup work. So without the Rain, his team is a little bit slower. It's not slow by any means, don't get me wrong. That's why it's still an 8.5. But this is the only part of his team that I would say, versing these teams that have webs or have just naturally faster Pokemon might present a little bit more problems for Jace. But as I said, he's got base 100 out of Zapdos. He's got 560 from Swampert when it's in the Rain. He's got 348 from Kartana. He's got base 80 from Gudra. He's got 3 types of priority from Hitmontop. He's got Prankster on Murkrow. He's got Fake Out, and he's got 361 speed from Ambipom. He's got 93 speed from Magmar, and he's got 80 something from Toxicroak. That number. 85 from Toxicroak. So it's good all across the board in my opinion. Even in Dusclops he's got Shadow Sneak, so it's just like, all across the board he's got something. He's got something to deal with mons that are going to be faster than him. It's such a well-rounded team in all these categories. So, yeah, wow. But as for the speed, that was a 8.5. We're gonna move on to hazards. Hazards, I scored a 9. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if we're gonna count Kartana types of hazard removal. As I've mentioned in almost all my analysis series that I've done, any teams that have more than one defogger, I always mention that this is good because it frees up slots for that Pokemon to run a more offensive option, to run a better utility option. It just frees up the slot for that Pokemon. It allows you to team build a lot easier because you're not like, oh shit, I have to bring Florges because it's my only defogger. Okay, well, the opponent's gonna know that when Florges comes, it's got defog, right? So it's when you have all these ways to get rid of hazard removal, it allows you to mix up your opponent a lot better. So not to mention, it allows you a lot more things to do on your team. If you have Rapid Spin on Hitmontop with Assault Vest, well, that gives you a bulky Pokemon. It gets rid of rocks. It's going to allow Zapdos to be an offensive option now. It's going to give Pelipper the ability to run Knockoff and U-Turn and Hurricane, or Hurricane Weather Ball U-Turn Roost. That's what's important about having more than one hazard removal. So, but as for hazard setup, this is where it's kind of low. He does have Stealth Rocks out of Swampert, but he's also got Stealth Rocks out of Clefable. Now, unfortunately, both these Pokemon might sometimes want to both be offensive. But it puts Clefable in a position to usually be the Stealth Rocker. We have seen him run Stealth Rocks on Swampert before. I totally think it's viable on Swampert if he doesn't need 4 attacks. You could totally just run it, send him out early, flip turn, send him out early, Stealth Rock, and then flip turn out, right? Swampert has more than enough bulk to do something like that. So that's the only part that I'd say on the hazards. You don't really have, I don't think Toxicroak has spikes. Yeah, it doesn't have spikes. That's the only part, maybe, is you only got 2 Stealth Rockers, and it kind of puts the Swampert and the Clefable into a weird position. I mean, obviously you don't have to have rocks, but like, versus teams like Scotty's, for example, rocks are going to be really good, considering you're going to be fighting for weather. If you can put the rocks on the field and keep that Charizard Y off, that's going to allow you to run your rain team more how you want it, right? So last but not least, as always, is the momentum, which I scored a 9 as well. This could easily be a 10. The only thing is, the only Pokemon that I see like, spiraling out of control from setup would be the Kartana. Now you could say Clefable as well from setup, but Kartana is the only one that's going to spiral out of control from either a Swords Dance or a Beast Boost, right? Aside from that, the momentum is coming from having this rain setup, having U-turn out of Zapdos, U-turn out of Pelipper, flip turn out of Swampert, U-turn out of Ambipom. There's a lot of ways for him to switch in and out of his team. Teleport on Clefable. Once that rain goes up, it's the Jace game, really, is what's happening. If you don't have a way to deal with the rain or those Pokemon that are gonna abuse the rain, it's the Jace game. You're basically gonna get attacked for potentially 5 turns if Jace doesn't switch out his offensive rain Pokemon, and that's gonna spiral out of control for you. You're gonna lose a Pokemon you might not wanted to have lost with that rain up, since Swampert just deals so much damage behind rain. You have 100% Hurricanes coming out of Pelipper and Zapdos, Weather Balls coming out of both of those mons as well. You have the hydration from Gudra, the Weather Ball Gudra as well. Just a lot of ways to chip down teams when that rain is up. When that rain is up, this is just like any rain team. It's just terrifying to deal with if you're not fully prepped for it. If you don't have a team that just full counters rain, it's hard to deal with as it is. You know, in his last match, Lucas was lucky that he had a Mon that had freeze dry, because aside from that, I know he was kind of having a hard time with Jace's team. So in terms of prep, right? So but overall, guys, 45.5. This is one of the best teams that I've scored before, and in my opinion, not just because Jace's record, but this is looking like one of the best teams in the draft so far. It just has every base covered. The only thing, maybe the rocks and the speed, but other than that, everything in this team is covered. I mean, he's got Sap Sipper on Gudra, he's got a blanket check and Dust Gloves, he's got priority on, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 Mons, 5 Mons, right? You know, he's got special attackers, he's got physical attackers, he's got Mons that can be physical or special in the Toxicroak and the Gudra. Just a, you know, a very, very well built team. I'm just happy that I even get to see this type of team, and, you know, give me some ideas of things that I could potentially run, you know, when I play draft again. So overall, it's just a great team. So yeah, good luck to the guys versing this team, and Jace, you've done a phenomenal job building a team like this, and we'll see you guys on the next one.